Yeah, 30 seconds.
How are you?
Good, good. You were gonna be late.
I didn't know if I was going to come because I had to go to Manhattan and get my eyes tested for.
Yeah.
Open them up.
Yeah.
Ready? Yep. Calls meeting order.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Hippia,
Present.
Fry, Schroller,
Here.
Hughes,
Here.
Bikeman, Price,
Present.
Barons,
Here.
Rom.
All right.
6. We have a quorum.
Next up, approval of minutes. Does anybody have any changes, additions?
Approve the minutes for the February 22nd meeting.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0. Okay. All right. Next up, we have public comment period. Is anybody here for public comment? Okay. First up on business and discussion items, we have demolition reimbursement for 506 Jenkins. And that was the one that suffered a house fire here, yeah, a few weeks ago. Would anybody like to make a motion to go ahead and approve that?
Make a motion to approve the demolition reimbursement at 506 Jenkins.
Okay, have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0. Okay. Next up, we have, well, it says Larry. Jim, are you here for the?
Yes, sir.
For the Avenue flags?
Larry's my backup. I assume you all got the information that Austin sent out regarding what our thoughts were, or kind of what our plan is for this project. What we want to do is, our Memorial Day committee would like to put together a better way to display the avenue of flags that we do on Memorial Day. I'm sure you're all familiar with how that project works. Mm-hmm. And if we can make it less labor intensive, we maybe could display the flags in other fashions around the year when it would be appropriate. So, after reading this, do you have any questions? Or that's mainly what I want to find out, if there's any concerns or questions about this project, so I can take it back to our Memorial Day committee and give them your feedback so we know how to move forward.
I did have a couple of my guys comment on the sturdiness of the poles you're recommending or
Yes.
looking at.
Uh-huh.
They talked about the telescoping poles that a lot of them like to bend over
Right.
in the wind.
And these are rated for, the ones that we're looking at, they're rated for 95-mile-an-hour winds.
Okay.
That should do it.
That was the comment
Yeah.
made by a couple of my guys.
We want to put something up that's substantial, that if you invest ahead at the beginning, you're not going to have so much problems going forward.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So we want something that looks nice, but is sturdy and will take the weather and all that.
Are we looking at a price?
Not from the city. We're looking at for volunteer, donors, like for veteran
Right.
families and other interested parties, but the price point that we're looking at is approximately $250 to $300 a pole.
How many you gonna
you
need?
pay for what you get. You can buy the $120 stuff, and that blows down in the wind.
How many are you going to have?
We're figuring anywhere from probably around 120.
120?
Yeah, right now Larry says if you have any questions about past practices, that's why Larry's here, but currently we put up about 140. But depending on the spacing, I would like to get a more uniform spacing. I think you got that map I gave to you. That's supposed to
Right.
highlight, I don't know if Austin got the highlight in there, where they currently are displayed. So if we can figure out maybe a 20 or 25 foot spacing between flagpoles, that should fall into that 120 realm number, is what we're thinking about. Can't say that for sure, but it'd be in that neighborhood.
And 3x5 flags is what you're gonna display?
Yes,
That's what it
ma'am.
says,
Mhm.
3x5.
Yep.
And you are wanting the city crew to install the base? Is that
Yes.
correct? The bases?
Yes, currently, they got bases there. Don't you wanna talk to them about
Yeah.
what's currently there, Larry?
They've got bases there for the poles we have used, which is antenna, mast. But, with these, they come with different, sleeves, different size. So we'll have to, install them. And in the past, the city crew has installed them for us. And what they do is they just, they use a post hole digger on a tractor, I believe, and put holes in, and then they put the sleeves in, and then they put concrete around them.
So that's what we're looking at. I think I gave you that map diagram, how deep the hole should be, and how much concrete it takes, and things like that. But that's what we're looking at the city to provide, the machinery to put the holes in, to put the concrete in. The flag kits come with metal, with an aluminum sleeve. So the sleeves will be there. You just mount the sleeves, make sure it's all level and all that stuff. And then you can get them sleeves far enough down to where when you do take them out, that you can mow over them and not have to worry about hitting them. That's why I was thinking it'd be better if you guys install it, because you know how you can get the heights just right, so you're not having to worry about hitting them with mowers and stuff when they do come out.
So the poles would just stay in there all the time, or you'd take the poles out
The
every
poles
year?
could be taken out if you wanted to. What I'm proposing is we'd put them in on Memorial Day and then take them out after September 11th. We could leave them in there year-round, but then when you push snow and stuff like that, that kind of creates a
Right,
problem.
okay.
So, so they could be pulled out, and you have like caps that you just put over the posts, and that keeps them from filling up with debris. But currently, I believe the flag poles that we got now that we're using, they're being stored at Hedstrom Hall.
Yes, the heads from home.
So we'd be asking to be able to continue to use that location to store the flag poles. Once, they're retracted, they'd be about 7 foot long. And then we would take care of the flags and any maintenance issues with the poles. We would look for volunteer organizations other than us to help, manage this project. Ideally, we'd, hopefully we get the scouts or the, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, maybe schools or businesses, anybody could be a participant. I mentioned something about 2 flags at poles at the entrance. Did you understand where I was getting at on the west entrance?
Right.
Okay. You didn't have any questions about the permanent, regular flag poles at the entrance?
I think we should, when that time comes, because they open and close the gates,
Yep.
then that's when we need to get the guys there.
Yep, absolutely. But the thought was you'd have the flags at the entrance, so you'd have the American flag, and then whatever organization is sponsoring the avenue, they would have a
Oh,
flag
that's a
there.
good idea. Yeah, good idea.
And then for donors, we'd have like a plaque that we put names on it. So we'd like to locate that somewhere in proximity to the entrance or somewhere within the cemeteries to identify people that supported the Avenue of Flags donations. So, if you're okay with that, that could be someplace, I just mentioned the entrance, but it could be anywhere that you would feel might be appropriate.
Well, I think we're building a new kiosk, so maybe it could be mounted with a new kiosk or something, so.
Yeah, if whatever if that, I mean, we're looking at something simple like a monument or something that has a plaque that we can add names to and stuff like that
That's a good idea.
for future donors, because this is gonna be a perpetuating thing, you know,
Yeah.
people are always gonna wanna be supporting this, I would think, you know, veteran families and
If you
stuff.
have like a marble monument and you can put little names on it coming into the thing, something like that.
We haven't really got that far in the weeds on it,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
know.
just something that we'd want to do. So I guess you're all kind of shaking your head in the right direction. Is it okay for us to kind of, to move forward with this with our committee, our Memorial Day committee? Or, I mean, you folks see any problems with the city?
Yeah, it probably wouldn't hurt to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to allow the Legion, is it
American Legion,
American Legion,
Post 163.
Post 163, to pursue updating the Avenue of Flags.
I second.
And you're okay with the with supporting the costs of putting in the foundations for the flags? Is that okay with you guys?
Well, yeah, and we need to probably talk with Dom and,
Right.
Okay.
on that end of it. I mean, are you planning on getting all the flagpoles bought and then doing it all at once, or is this just gonna be a?
I believe,
work it
yeah.
From one end
I
forward,
think
or what do
that's,
you think?
yeah, I mean, we would like to get everything all, ideally, we'd like to get them all done at the same time. So, the idea would be, over the next 2 years, reach out to, you know, veteran families to collect donations, and then accumulate that money to, you know, we'd go out and measure and figure out how many we need, and then we'd get a target number of what we want, and then, you know, for that, what you got on the map, that would be the area, don't you think, Larry?
Mm-hmm.
To
Yeah.
just get the whole, enough for the whole project, so we just do it in one shot.
That was gonna be my question. You're not gonna have it done this summer?
No.
It's gonna be like a
we
couple of
got-
years down the
We're
road.
gonna need some running room here to raise money.
All right, well, we had a motion and a second. Any
I
further
second.
discussion? Yeah. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Present. I wasn't here for the discussion, so I don't want to vote.
6-0.
I'll bring you up to speed, Todd, on it if you wanna know anything, 'cause you're on the
Okay.
cemetery committee.
Yep, yeah,
All right.
drop me an email, it's the best way.
All right, well, if
What
you
do you
should've
mean
got
right
the
now?
packet, you should've got the packet. If
I
you had-
did,
if you had any
and I talked to you on
questions-
the phone too, so.
Yeah, if you have any questions, just get a hold of me.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll keep you posted on what our committee's up to now, as we move forward.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, next up, we have 11th Road South with Tony Heaver.
And I'll apologize up front, because I didn't tell Tony I was putting his name next to all this stuff.
Oh.
I saw it a few times on there.
11th Road, ADA, and Frank Marshall Drive, so.
Yeah.
Let's get them all done.
I know I hadn't been here in a while, so I got ambushed, I
Get
think.
it all.
Oh, thank you for, seeing me tonight. I guess first off, 11th Road, Austin and I have been talking about this over the last couple of weeks, and he thought it'd be best just to come here tonight and discuss with you guys and get some input as, we kind of complete and wrap up some of these plans for, finishing 11th Road from, the highway down to, Keystone Road. One of the things we talked about was a pavement type, whether he wanted asphalt or concrete, and so that's kind of one thing I wanted to get some input from the council, what you would like to see. I think we've done a lot of concrete recently in town, and, as we kind of get more on the rural side of the developments, is if you want to do some asphalt or what your feelings are.
I'd say that first section is, I don't even know if I'd call it rural, it's so densely
Yeah, right,
populated.
yep.
So, to me, concrete, at least through that turn,
Through the-
makes a lot of sense. And also that we have concrete to the top of the hill now.
Yeah.
So that past the turn, I don't know the count, before Keating Drive versus after, but I
Yeah.
suspect that's probably half the traffic.
I would
Yeah.
think so.
That was gonna be staff's position on this, that at the very least, if you're gonna go back and forth between concrete and asphalt, that very first section, needs to be concrete. It makes the most sense out of everything, cause they're not turning, more than likely, they're not turning left out of, the senior housing, they're turning right to
Right.
get to their amenities.
Plus,
So,
service trucks like trash trucks, and if there's construction that goes on out there at Water Tower Place, I can see more trucks going that way in the near future, so.
Yep.
Do you want to, I mean, this kind of meshes with the phases part of it down at the bottom that we can jump on right now too, that, just in discussion with Austin, he talked about that being a first phase of the project from Keating Street north. And if that was what you wanted to be concrete and that was a first phase of it, just completing a set of plans that clearly defines that as a project, that could be ready to bid sooner and ready to go. And then from Keating Drive south, if you want to look at a different pavement, or even if you want to stay concrete, but making that a complete separate set of plans that whenever you choose to do that or bid that would be there and ready to go.
Yeah, and that's what we kind of discussed before, was at least doing that first section in concrete, and then we could maybe go to asphalt if we wanted to, or some other surface. You also had, about the drainage, this, turf versus rock versus concrete.
And so this would maybe apply in a second phase of the project then down there, but,
Have you ever used this before, or seen it used?
I haven't, I've just read the literature about it, but I think there's enough of it out there. You know, everybody's trying to get that way, where they're getting away from the hard surfaces, the concrete and rock, and, you know, if they can look at an environmental solution like that, they would.
I was looking at each of the options, and either putting riprap or something like that, down the ditch didn't seem like a very,
Well, the problem with the riprap is then weed stuff growing up in it, and then
Yeah.
people can't maintain it easy, and then
Yeah.
we're trying to spray stuff on it, and it becomes a mess.
If
kinda.
this mat, or any of these mats can make it a permanent grass structure along the ditch and better maintainable for the people who maintain the ditches, that's a positive all the way around. And it looks better. It'll definitely look better, if these mats do what they say they're gonna do.
If is a big word.
Yeah,
Can they still mow over them and
Yes.
everything? Okay.
Yeah, it's to help keep the dirt there while the grass grows, and a more structure to that ground right there. Correct, Tony?
Tony,
Correct.
if we were to use asphalt, would that speed up the water and create a problem later on? Or concrete in that ditch?
You would want to control it probably all the way down. I mean, you'd almost be looking at concrete bottom all the way down to the box culvert.
Okay, but do you think it would speed it up?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely compared to this grass and
That's
rock
what I was
option,
afraid of.
for sure.
But you definitely have a permanent ditch bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, but speeding it up out there is
Does not
not
help.
gonna help.
No.
It's gonna create another bigger problem later on.
Yeah,
We need to slow the water down.
yeah, and help it absorb into the ground.
And that's kind of some direction, I guess, in all three of the points I brought up in the email. Is there any other?
Well, the question I would have on, to Keating Drive, would it be to the south edge of the apron that's currently there? Is that kind of the line?
Yep.
Okay. It breaks up right past that apron
Yeah.
south, but,
Yeah.
I mean, where do you stop? It breaks up all the way to Keystone somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, but when we wanna go a little bit past,
That's what I
That-
wondered, is if we get the worst section, and then there's probably 50 yards of good asphalt, and then it starts breaking up again, so.
I would just think if we get past the apron a little bit, then there's
Yeah.
no interference when we do the next
Sure.
phase.
Yep.
With it, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's
Yeah,
car
and
length or.
there'll be some distance of transition
Okay.
that'll be removed at the next phase. You'll wanna, we'll have our new cross-section, and then they'll wanna tie that into what's there now.
And based purely on the bridges that I've seen go in here lately, where you meet concrete and asphalt, you're gonna end up having to do continuous little work anyway, cause it tries to hump, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's where the discussion of that planer comes in.
Grind it off.
Yeah,
Or just concrete it all.
or just concrete it all. That is also an option out there.
Concrete it all.
So I will proceed then with a phase project from Keating Street north of concrete and get that wrapped up and a set of drawings that you guys can use then.
Do we wanna look at fiscally, responsible phases, as far as, like, okay, we got $200,000 to spend this year, we got $200,000 to spend next year, trying to phase it that way? Is that, trying to keep it in those ballparks, is that something we can do, Tony?
You certainly can, yeah, I mean, that would, obviously, it's gotta fit in your budget to do,
So,
I think
the
that's
littler
a
amount you
quicker
do,
way
the
to get
least
it done.
efficiency you are, but
so,
it's,
so we can talk about how we can, where's the line for each phase?
yeah.
But definitely that first phase is already
Yep.
set in concrete, I guess.
Yep.
These turf mats, is there some way we can find out from these companies if there's somebody that's used it that we could,
Oh, yeah, yep, I can find out
you
some more
know, see
information.
what they
out
would
there.
recommend? I mean,
Yep,
so
yep,
we
I'll get more
know
information on that.
know what works best.
Yeah, KDOT does a lot of, like I said, they're getting away from hard when they can too, so. Erosion control's just been such a big issue to them and a lot of places that,
Yeah, they've been converting a lot of their concrete, medians into grass. I mean, they're definitely going from hard surface to grass, I can see that.
have you guys done a lot? I mean,
We've done several of them that way, that they, and actually the contractors, it obviously costs a little bit more, a little bit more time for them, but they're actually generally more comfortable with it, cause they know once they put it down, they don't have to worry about it anymore. If you're doing, especially on side slopes and ditches, they're coming back numerous times and they just hate that, you know, so they know they're gonna put this in, they're gonna get paid for it, and they pretty much can walk away.
It's good to know.
Do you need a motion or anything for that, or?
No, that's direction.
Yep.
You got enough direction
yep, I
on
got
that?
what I needed on that.
Okay. And then ADA ramps is next. I don't know if you wanna talk through, I mean,
Yeah, I just presented these drawings for, I guess, for review and me to look at and,
yeah. One of the main concerns that was brought up, that we replace all the gutters that are broken, and we definitely went out and looked at each one of these. A lot of these have complete replacements everywhere there's dark. That's complete replacement, or that's a replacement of the gutter. So like 14th and Walnut, there's 3 quads that are getting complete replace on the curb and gutter. 9th and Walnut, 5th and Elm, I mean, quite a bit.
yeah.
Some of them even have new catch basins, so that'll help us out in the storm sewer, cause they're replacing some of the old, brick lined ones. And some of these, places, we're doing the best we can with ADA compliance. There's a lot of hill in town, and we have to fight that. Some of these places, to get them ADA compliant, you have to go a long ways
Oh,
back
yeah.
to get it there.
I like working down here on the, or on
Yeah,
the
on the
side.
flat. But for instance,
Oh,
what was that one where the peak of the hill, like, was way far back and you just kept going?
Yeah, it's probably 14th.
14th? Yeah,
I mean, it's-
14th.
I don't even know if
It
it's
just kept
ever-
going.
If you wanna see how crazy it can get, if you ever go through Fairbury on
Yeah.
Highway 15, when they put their ADA ramps in, every one of them's like a maze. There's like a post office style ramp at every intersection. I don't know how much money it
And
costs.
correct me if I'm wrong, when you're putting in a ramp, every 15 feet, you gotta put a landing in. So imagine that, going down this hill, trying to do it, up 15 feet flat. Well, you're digging further and further into the hill.
I think
To
it's
get
about
it-
30 feet you can go.
30 feet?
Yeah, at the
Okay.
maximum slope, and then you have to have a landing for them to rest. and
Okay.
A flat landing.
Still, for a lot of our locations. So this is a lot of, as best as we can get.
I did have a question on these. I'm glad we have the ones along Center Street, cause I'm the one who, I know I brought that up a couple times.
Yep, I'm gonna ask.
There's a concern I have there in the 1400 block on the north side there along Nordis's lot. The sidewalk, I'm gonna put it in quotes since it's an access management issue,
Right.
is very, very broken up. Like, I'm not sure a wheelchair could even roll through there.
Right.
If somebody was in a wheelchair and needed the ramps. I know it's not really our property to mess with, but if there was something we could do in conjunction, maybe working with Nordis to help that out, because I don't see people using the ramps if they can't use the sidewalk on the other side of the ramp. It just
Right.
defeats the purpose of the ramp.
And that is a good point. We can approach them with our grant that we have.
And I didn't want to incur the wrath of KDOT with being an access management issue, because that's an entrance, right?
Yeah,
Don't
but
they get
it
a little
would-
hinky about that?
Only if it's KDOT money,
Okay,
yeah.
good to know.
They're not, I mean, they're not really gonna look in, they haven't really looked in unless they've been doing that recently. No. Usually they hunker down on their money, more than anything.
Okay, good.
But they'll see what we're doing in our permits, and if they have questions, they'll talk to us, but, yeah, we can encourage property owners, and, yeah, we'll encourage some property owners to help their own properties out.
Well, we have a program for that if it's a sidewalk, so,
Yes.
I mean, we can definitely do our part there.
Definitely.
Any more questions or concerns about the ADA ramps?
On what, on center or? Oh, okay, because they have it on Broadway too.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
A motion to go out to bid.
Motion to go out
Motion to go out to bid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody will make a motion to go out to bid on the ADA ramps.
So moved.
Second.
Second it? Okay. Any further discussion?
I will make the due date, or not due date, the completion date, October 31st, like I do all my other concrete projects, except for the 12th Street, for obvious reasons. So that's gonna be you have to be done by October 31st.
Okay. Had a motion to second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Right, now Frank Marshall Drive.
You want to talk about, I mean, well, this is, CES provided a proposal to design Frank Marshall Drive. That was moved to the top of our priority list for local streets. Their engineering services are $9,893. That's the design. The project, they also bid the civil engineering. What does that cover, Tony? Is that construction engineering?
I'm not sure, I'm assuming I'll put
I'm
that
assuming it
together.
is because it's limited construction administration, material testing, and
Probably as needed type.
as needed, up to $19,100. Typically, we just have them go out and test the concrete as it's put down. This one, we might want them to watch, just so we can get that drainage put in right, so they gave an up to, not a full, not a lump sum.
They did what, Austin?
It says not to exceed $19,100, so if I'm getting that right, that means they'll charge us for what they do up to $19,100 while they're watching the project being done and testing the materials, which we already have them test the materials. So that's an up to and not a lump sum, so they could be less than $19,100.
Sounds like it's whatever you want, whatever you feel oversight you need on the project. If
Yeah.
you just want concrete tested or don't want anything, it would.
And then,
It's up
bidding services, for $1,720. They do a pretty good job, with bidding. They do all the paperwork, the contracts, correct, in the bidding services. And then, so it's up to you guys, how you guys want to proceed.
So do we have a total project yet?
The total what do you mean?
The price of
The
the
cost of
total
it.
cost?
No, this is them designing it.
Oh, this is just them designing it?
Yes, this
Okay.
is just them
The
designing
first
it,
part of it.
and it includes work done by the engineer during the project. So
Right.
they gotta design it first, and then we can get to, then this is a next year project,
Okay.
so, yeah.
I have a question about that. They're on Frank Marshall Drive. Has the water problem been solved there on the corner yet? So that no matter what gets done, we're not gonna have to worry about water anymore.
Which corner, are you talking, like,
Well,
down there in the
there's a spring
southwest
comes
corner?
out underneath the house on the corner of Frank Marshall Drive there. And it always runs into the street, and it's caused the street to be in the shape that it's in. And unless we fix this problem where the water's coming from,
Yeah, I know, when we looked at this, probably a year or two ago, I mean, you could see water even coming up from underneath the street, seeping up through the cracks, and so we've proposed an underground drainage underneath the pavement to collect water and take it to the storm sewer and get it out from beneath our pavement.
okay, because I think that's kind of imperative. We're
Yeah.
gonna spend money on concrete there that I know personally, because I used to own that piece of ground, I know personally about the water that comes from that ground. And it's an underground spring thing, and it creates a
Yep.
problem there.
Yeah.
And that needs to be looked into seriously before we spend a ton of money trying to replace a street that probably should have lasted a lot longer than it did.
Yep. Yeah, that was the first thing we looked at with city staff. They
Right.
took us up there, that was a couple of years ago now, but
Yep.
we looked directly at that. That was the cause of really why you're discussing this project, is
Yeah.
getting that solved before we do something.
All right, need a motion?
Yes, please.
So I'd like to make a motion, to approve the engineering.
I make a motion to approve the engineering for Frank Marshall Drive.
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion?
And just to make certain, that includes everything that's listed on here?
Correct.
Okay, okay, thank you.
I can total it up for you if you want me to.
So that means we won't have any more problems once this is taken care of, right?
This is just the engineering.
Right,
Yeah.
to take care of the water
Yeah.
problems
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, with the drainage they're looking at installing is hoped to fix that, yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, got a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0.
We still have 6, you're right, we have 7, sorry.
Thank you, guys.
So I think that's it for you.
Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Daniel?
Yes, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My first meeting I've been able to attend in 2021, so glad I'm here. We have a couple things to discuss. I see on the agenda, discussion of the lagoon. I had sent up a couple maps to Austin initially, and was hoping I could get the memo out to you as well, but that did not go quite as efficiently as I had hoped. So basically, we're looking at two maps, one being excerpt of the floodplain map viewer, and then another is just a general layout of a potential wetland cell on the city-owned property. So, provided a memo for this evening, and there's a few things that I wanted to discuss in regards to the process as we go through this. We utilize LiDAR contours to look at and start putting these things together, at least in a preliminary fashion, just to see what it might look like. And that's kind of the layout that we have there. And what it comes down to, we have three major considerations that we have to look at for that site. One, it is an active floodplain. We're on the west side of the levee, so we're between the levee and the river. So that's an active floodplain, so there comes considerations with that. Well, one of those with KDHE is if we do a wetland, we have to berm and quote flood-proof it, so we have to build a berm around it that has to be a minimum of 1 foot above that base flood elevation, okay? The other is, that we have to have a liner because this area is what's called a sensitive groundwater. And I mentioned that before in previous updates. We've worked out that we can use a quarter of an inch liner, seepage per day, as opposed to the 1/10 of an inch. If we use a 1/10 of an inch, it's not a wetlands, it's a lagoon cell. I mean, we could plant stuff in it, but it's not gonna act, very well as a wetlands. And then, by getting the leniency for the 1/4 inch per day as opposed to a 1/10 inch per day, we have to maintain 10 foot of separation between groundwater and our liner. So those are kind of the three main considerations. The layout, as we look around here, the top of the berm is about at 1157. The base flood elevation in that area is around 1156. So we'd get that confirmed in final design, whether we can go up or can go down a couple tenths, or we have to go up a couple tenths. But for this purpose, so if you look around the existing contours, we're looking to raise, that berm will be 8 to 10 feet high from existing ground. And effectively, we probably won't be quite as high as the levee, but we'll be pretty close.
Okay.
We'll have to be, for that. Because the levee, I think they're like a minimum of 2 foot above, floodplain, you know, as opposed to, the 1 foot requirement, for this type of facility. And the reason why we put this, or kind of chose this, that's a borrow pit. It's one of the, it was a borrow pit. This whole area was a borrow pit to build the levee. And they basically took all the clay off the top and then got down to sand and kind of stopped, okay? And that's why this is already a big depression. So what we were looking at is we could clean the inside of it up, make it more, you know, usable as a lagoon area, and take clay from around the site to build these berms. Because everything else that's not dug out is clay, primarily. So that's kind of what we looked at. And, you know, to give you an idea what it looked like, you know, this particular cell, based off of what we've got, it would end up having about 13.9 acres of what, and that's in the memo. I do have it in the memo. It would provide about that amount of usable area, the bottom, of where the wetlands would be. But that elevation would be actually 1141. So if you're familiar and you've been out to that area, you know, there's the really big one on the southern part of it that they really tore out. The bottom of this area, we would have to fill in between 4 and 8 feet to get that groundwater separation. That material that we could bring in for that fill, for the separation, it can be sand. It doesn't need to be anything special, and I would prefer sand, as opposed to even a loess or silty clay or anything like that. But it's going to take a lot. So on the first page of the memo, and understand this is real preliminary, you know, we haven't surveyed anything out there, but we're equating almost 50,000 cubic yards of fill for the berm. And to do that separation, that granular material, we're talking almost 84,000 cubic yards. That's a lot of material, but that's really the only feasible way we can do it, okay? the liner itself would be required to be, the liner at the bottom, it would be a clay. What I would try to work with is to get an admixture of clay and sand or something that, it wouldn't be pure clay. We'd want it to have, we need it to have some of that permeability. Or we could just go dig a whole bunch more, well, we don't have room for a whole bunch at the existing lagoon site, but that's effectively what we'd end up. If we use the clay as it is and repurpose it, it's gonna give us a really tight liner, so we're gonna have to admix it.
Okay.
But that can be done.
I keep forgetting to bring this up. We're about to have, the state's doing a stream bank stabilization, like on the Blue River, right in this area where S is back this way. And they said they're gonna have some excess. It's not gonna be what you want, how much you want, but 600 sounds about right. Keep it, he said by the end of the project, they'll have some excess to utilize somewhere else, and they'd love to just dump it somewhere, so.
Well, I mean, realistically, with that being your site, if you can get it in a location that's accessible, you know, a contractor would, I mean, that's their biggest thing, is the accessibility of it.
Yep.
So for the berm, I would plan on utilizing on-site material. They would just strip off. Now, keeping this in mind, if you look at the whole thing, you can kind of take a trail and see where they, you know, even along the north face of that bigger one, we will not be able to dig between there and the levee. Because we can't dig that close. So we would be looking at, well, can we take this, it's about 130 feet, 150, 160 feet. Can we start mining that, you know, all the way through here? There's areas around that we, you know, there's a lot of clay on the top, so it's not really an issue. But we would look at that. The granular, the separation material would all have to be imported. Those are some of the things, you know, I've made some preliminary estimates of what that would be for cost-wise, but I think we'd want to check on that and, you know, refine it. But if you look at building this thing and this does not include the lift station. The lift station would have to be on the west side, force main underneath the river, getting it into the cell. That number is probably equating around $500,000. You know, if you get electrical there, you know, have a generator, you know, those would be some of the things that we could discuss. But you're looking at $1.4 million to develop this.
Without the 500,000?
Without the 500,000.
Without the 500, okay.
So I broke that down, you know, that's about $100,000 an acre to get that done. And that's a lot of money. But we're working towards a non-discharge. This is really our only feasible. We've discussed the other opportunities on the site. They're not really there on the site. And the surrounding area doesn't sound like it's a realistic option. So this is, if we're gonna go to this scenario, if we're gonna try to get to the non-discharge, this is the most likely. I even thought a little bit about irrigation in this area, and that's not really feasible either, because the one thing with irrigation is you never want that water to pond. Wherever we go, it's gonna end up in a whole bunch of ponds, and unless we wanna fence the whole area off and let nobody in there, that wouldn't work either. And it would be really hard just trying to get stuff in and around there. So I don't think that's really an option on this site either. So understanding that, the next thing with this particular on a regulatory basis, because this is a floodplain, I've been working with Division of Water Resources. We'll have to get a permit to fill in a floodplain. It's not a floodway, but it is a floodplain. The requirement for filling is that we would not, at least in my discussions, we don't have to do what's called a no-rise. We don't have to prove a no-rise, but we have to prove that it's a foot or less of a rise. And that has some, there's a real easy way that you can check that, just off of LiDAR contours and scale out some stuff and you do some profiles. We did that and it wouldn't meet that particular test, and that particular test isn't allowable anyway because we're right next to a levee. But the reason why we did that was to look at, and it was based off of this layout, the reason why we did that was to see if we're close. And we're close, but we're not just over the line. We're over a little bit more. But effectively, what Division of Water Resources would require if we were to look at permitting the site for fill, for this, something even smaller or bigger or whatever, we have to do a complete hydraulic analysis model of the floodplain along there. And that's an expensive item to go through. But realistically, if you want to look at this, this is your next step. You really have to, because the one thing I don't want to do, KDHE doesn't care. If we berm it a foot above, they're good. But we're looking to go to CDBG with this, and we need to have a selected project. And if we say, well, this is what we're going to do, and we don't know that answer, and we don't feel comfortable that that permit has either been provided or will be, there's a potential we could get awarded $700,000 grant for a project that we cannot do. And that's the concern that we would get to now. The process for us to do that and their review is probably a 45 to 60 day process. And what I would propose for us, it kind of matters what DWR can provide us to, as a start, and then how we build it from there. But what I would like to recommend would have an amendment for us to do this with an hourly not to exceed 10,000.
With what?
An hourly, an amendment to our existing contract that would be based off of the hours that are required to do it to a maximum of 10,000.
Maximum of what?
10,000.
For the hydraulic study?
For the hydraulic analysis, yes. And part of that would include, part of what we're thinking is, if you look at you can kind of look at on this map. So if you think of the flood coming down the river, okay, it's going along here. Well, in this area right here, the floodplain, because we know the west, it shoots up. So the only way where the place the water can go is to the east. Well, it's going to hit the levee. That's as far as it can go, and then it'll go down. Well, think about this. Think of a wall of water coming down. Look at how much area that takes out of that swath. Mm-hmm. That has us somewhat concerned about whether or not we can prove the 1 foot. And there's things that we can do. We can try to skinny it. We can, maybe we try to look at some multiple areas. And what we probably will also have to do is to identify, we would get credit for the proposed areas that we would take that clay out to build the berm. But this is a big hole now that in a flood would fill. We build this berm around it. It's not only is the berm blocking the wall of water, we've taken this whole hole out of the equation. So to be realistic in the ability to use this, you're going to have to go through that process. And what I wanted to bring to you tonight is understanding at least the cost of what this type of a construction would be, And is it something that we want to move forward with? The one thing that we can do a wetlands, we have talked about in the past of doing a new primary cell to the very north and east of the very north cell, because based off of KDHE regulations, that primary cell is not sufficient. It's not large enough. Whether you're talking 350,000 a day or 400,000. And we're really in the middle of those two numbers, okay? If we do a wetlands, we don't have to fix that problem, which is a good thing. But I'm gonna go through a few numbers here that says we may need to do it anyway. Or are we gonna have to do double the size of something like this, which is gonna make the floodplain issue worse? So that's part of the $10,000. We figure we're gonna have to do a couple iterations of this to try to figure out how we could fit something in that would be feasible, both on that site and to maximize that site. Then we would determine, do we need to do something else, i.e. another smaller cell or same size cell or a bigger cell than what we currently have up there, okay?
Excuse me.
Yes.
I'll ask you a question though. Before you start, because this is gonna be, we gotta do this, or maybe we'll do that, maybe. BG Consultants what's their best plan so we don't have go-backs or have to do something else? What do your company, what do you recommend we do?
I would recommend at this step that we would do the hydraulic analysis to get the full understanding of what that site can handle, the wetland site, the proposed wetland site. If we can go bigger than this, that minimizes our need to do anything on the existing. If we can go, 50% bigger than this, maybe we only have to, instead of doing another 13-acre cell, we might be able to do a 6 or 7, which is just money saving, And maybe it shows that, hey, we can do whatever we want and we're good with the floodplain. But I think we're gonna get to a point of saturation, if you will, that there's so much that we can't block that whole floodplain off. And that's the thing of what this is. So we need to do this to figure out, can we do this type of a scenario? Can we do bigger than that? Or are we gonna have to do smaller? And that's what we're gonna have to figure out. And then once we know how big, it's costly to do these wetlands. And it's about the same per acre ultimately to build the primary. But it is understandable that currently we're evaluating the lagoon site having 1/10 of an inch of seepage per day. That's one of the reasons, because it's all clay. It's fat clay.
Right there. Is that something that's gonna be allowed forever? Or is
That
it something
seepage?
we're gonna have to face later?
Well, on the existing lagoon site, the allowable seepage on that site per KDHE is 1/4 of an inch, 0.25 per day, okay? But the way it was built and the material that was utilized and looking at your numbers of why you discharge so much and you're not meeting regulations on your permit is because that you're not getting as much seepage as they planned. It just isn't happening. And a big part, it's all just clay. I mean, it's gumbo. I mean, once it hits water, it's just gonna blow up and it's not gonna let anything else through. So what we're currently evaluating between the two sites is we're looking at 1/10 of an inch of seepage on the lagoon site. And if we were to add another cell, what I have in the memo is about a 12-acre cell, we're using that seepage rate of 1/10 of an inch, because that's a big difference between a quarter. All right? When we get over to the wetland site, we're looking at an evaluation of looking at seepage rates. It's allowable for 1/4 of an inch. And that's what we'll try to design it to get to. But realistically, we need to evaluate it, and what I have is 3/16. It's better than 1/10 for sure, but it's not the quarter. We're not gonna hit a perfect quarter on that. So it'll end up being maybe a little tighter. And that's how we're looking at the sizing. And on the memo, we're looking at that scenario at the bottom of page 2. There's 2 tables at the bottom. The first one is, what would the size wetland need to be, and this is usable area, for the wetlands if there's no primary cell? Okay? If we don't do anything on the existing, how big would we need to be? If we look at the top 2 numbers, are 1/4 inch per day, like I said, which isn't realistic, but at 350,000 gallons a day, you would need 22 acres. Remember, what I'm showing you is just under 14. If we do the 400,000, now you're hitting 24 acres. If we look at the 3/16, 0.1875, you've dropped that 22 at 350,000, you're now 17.5 as opposed to 22.2. Closer to what we have. Is still bigger than what we're currently looking at, but it's closer. And if you do the, I think I got that messed up. I think the 30.3 and the 23.8, I think those are switched. If you follow what I'm saying. Because the 400,000 at the 3/16 should be less than the 1/4 inch. I'm sorry about that. I'll verify that and send that back, but right now put an arrow between those 2 to swap those numbers. So if we did with no primary cell, no, that's right, I'm sorry. I think the 22 is the wrong one. I'll get that worked out. But we're bigger than what we're showing anyway, and if we get more seepage, the number is smaller. And I think it still is the swap of those 2, but, so we've got the question of the 350 to 400,000 worth of flow. That's still something that we need to figure out, and I need to get with Kent and get 2020 numbers. But 2016 through 2019, we're in that 360 average. You know, 2018 or 2019 was a pretty high year. You know, which we can understand why for a lot of reasons. But and the precip was up. So the bottom table, that would be if we built a 12-acre primary cell, what would the numbers need to be? I think those numbers are right. I apologize. I keep talking myself around those, but I think the table numbers of the acreage are correct. If we build the primary cell, if you look at the very bottom, 400,000 gallons per day at the lower seepage, we need 28.3. So we've saved ourselves, quote, we've saved ourselves 2 acres of wetlands by building 12 acres of lagoon. That doesn't make financial sense, okay? But until we know how much we can maximize that site, we don't know where we're going to land. These are at the ends. These are the high end, low end. We're probably going to end up in the middle somewhere. And, you know, so that's what we're recommending is we need to move forward with that to figure out, one, is it even feasible at all? It may be that it's not. I think it should be, I really do, but we have to prove that to the state and to the Corps ultimately. So that's the process to do that. Really, those are the main issues. You know, we've been in discussion with KDHE. If we move forward with this, we'll inform them that that's what we're doing. I think right now, based off of what we've already discussed of our opportunities at the existing site, this has the most feasibility, the most promise, because we don't have a whole lot of options at the existing site. We could build probably a 15 to 16 acre primary cell, and that's basically all we can do without digging a whole bunch of rock and different things. You know, we could do more, but we can't get enough to handle everything that we need.
Well, if you did that, would that solve our problem? When you say we could go ahead and do 16 acres?
It would not solve your problem, no.
That's what I'm getting at. Instead
Ultimately, no. The site as itself, your boundary is limited to where we cannot realistically put in enough ponds, because I'm gonna tell you the best seepage you're gonna get is 1/10 of an inch, not 1/4. It's really 1/10, because it doesn't matter if we tear 3 feet out and we put sand underneath our liner, it's 15 foot of clay. It'll go through the liner real slow, it'll go right through the sand, and it'll hit another 12 foot of clay. It's not gonna go anywhere. So there'll be a little volume that it will hold, and there are components, and we'll look a little bit at this, there are components of, with the wetlands, you know, you don't wanna flood out a wetlands. So there will be some operational patterns that we would have to look at. And that would realistically include, those cells are an operating depth of 5 feet. If we raise that up a foot, we're getting 48 acre feet of extra water. That's about at 350,000 gallons per day, that's about 43 days. At 400,000, that's about 38 days. So if we raise all those lagoons another foot, it does 2 things. We can hold another month, basically, without discharging if we have to, if we were really wet, differing things. The other thing is, you've put another foot, I know it's not much, but you put a little bit more hydrostatic head on that liner, which might make it go 0.11 seepage as opposed to 0.1. And I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers out there, but, you know, that site is 1/10 of an inch seepage, best case scenario. And we would have to more than double what we have out there, and it just isn't feasible out in that area. And if the wetlands doesn't come back with at least some options that we can work with, then we're gonna have some real discussions about other things that we've discussed in the past that we don't want to go to, but we'd have to look at other options around that area.
Well, we know we need to get it fixed.
Yeah, and the bad thing is KDHE knows you need to get it fixed.
But if we're gonna get it fixed, and we're gonna get into this, wade into it and get it fixed, it'd be nice if we didn't have to keep you guys on our contingency thing every year to redo it every time.
Right.
Every year we got something else we gotta do with it.
Right.
If we solve the problem, that's really wonderful.
Yeah, the intention of what we'd look at this for is we would change your permit with KDHE to what's called a non-discharge permit. the really good thing about that, I mean, it makes some sense with that, but EPA looks at your permit right now. And EPA looks at your permit that you have and they say, Marysville, what is their deal? KDHE, get them in line. If you go to a non-discharge, EPA never even sees that. We would only deal with the state of Kansas, and they effectively look at those as it's a no-brainer. That's what they want. They want to go to a non-discharge systems.
Well, I'm sure the city of Marysville would like to be where it was a no-brainer for them too.
Yeah. Yeah, right now it's not a no-brainer, but we have some alternatives that we would like to get, and this wasn't something that we initially thought we'd be looking at, so that's why we're making the request for the amendment to do that for you.
One other question then. How much time have we got to decide what we're gonna have you tell them we're gonna do?
I would say by your next council meeting, if you could.
Really?
Would be, well, let me make sure I understand your question. Tell who and decide what, I guess. I mean, are you saying about our recommendation to do the modeling? Or to tell KDHE, this is what we're thinking about doing, and it's gonna take more time?
If you design it one way, once you do this, you're gonna submit it.
Yes, we'll submit it to KDHE, yes.
But then there's no room for change. That's what we're gonna do.
I won't say there's no room for change. We don't really have to provide anything. I've already talked with KDHE. We're probably shooting for June 1st to get a final answer. But this step is part of getting us to that final answer.
So tonight, all you're really asking us to put this extra $10,000 on the contract.
I would like you to consider it, and if it's not comfortable tonight and you want to talk more about it, if we could do it in 2 weeks, I would respectfully request that.
But because of the time frame, it'd be better if we did it tonight.
Sure, it would be.
And it's just up to $10,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'll send an amendment up to all our original agreement, all the legalese will stay the same. It'll just be a scope and fee change. I'll send that. I would respectfully request any motion to include, contingent upon your city attorney approval. Okay. So we need a motion to allow the mayor to sign an amended contract. How do you want that worded? It'd be an amendment.
Yeah,
An amendment to the original, to the contract.
Yes.
Want to
Make
make
a
a motion
10,000.
to put a $10,000 amendment to our contract with
BG Consulting.
BG Consultants for
Floodplain modeling.
floodplain modeling. Thank you.
Okay, have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. Are there any other questions of kind of where we're at right now, or?
Not really. I mean, it looks like, assuming that the modeling turns out all right and we can do that, we're looking at probably another lagoon and then the wetlands area and a lift station.
Yeah.
And then probably if we put the screen and stuff down at the pumps. So we're probably looking at a $4 million plus project probably altogether.
So how long before you guys can do this? After this evening, when can you get your people out?
Well, I've already started the agency discussion with them, and yeah, once we should hear definitely by the end of this week what they have, and we will start this week or first next week on that process.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're ready to move to the easier of the two? I never know how you want to do that. You want to put the hard one first? And then
We went with the hard one first.
So I also sent up some info. KDOT has called for projects on the C-CLIP, the City Connecting Link Improvement Program, again, this is a program that we utilize for North Highway 77, from 36 south down down to what I call the North Park Drive, I guess. And, what we would look at is, we've submitted for this before, and we weren't successful, which isn't necessarily, a bad thing. I mean, it's understandable. You already got the $1 million for the other one. But this is for fiscal year 2023 or 24. And remember, the fiscal year of KDOT starts July 1. So what it would mean is, if you have a 23 project, you would need to bid it between July 1, 22 and the end of June of 23.
Is it that, just bid it, not having construction done?
Right.
Okay.
And 24 would be a year later. So if we want to apply, the scope of the project right now starts at the end of the recent project, the concrete on, like I said, North Park Drive, or the North Park entrance, and we would take it all the way to the bridge. And,
To where KDOT takes over,
Yeah.
not directly to the bridge. I think there's a section in there that's
it's pretty
asphalt.
close right now.
We had
There's,
a discussion one time about exactly where.
We need to get that sorted out, cause it is getting bad.
No, definitely, the proposal would be that, there is a section of asphalt that is KDOT's, and we did talk to them, if they did approve this project, that it would behoove them to latch on to this project and get their portion done.
Yeah.
They seem to agree at that point in time anyways.
So the cost of this, is a little over 1.6 million is what we're estimating it for. It's $1 million grant, we're funding, it's $1 million funding. You guys would be responsible for somewhere between 600 and 650,000 is what we're estimating right now. We're also looking to replace the sanitary sewer, along, 10th Street from where we did the first stretch in the first project. We would take that through down to Jackson, and we'd get across to the Jackson. So effectively, new paving would have new sewer underneath it as well. And that's what we're proposing. Maybe we get in and look at it, it's like, you know what, this section is fine, but there are two lines that go east and west.
Yeah.
Then there's a line that goes north.
And the sanitary sewer the numbers are estimated in this project too.
Yes. And that is officially non-participating.
Non-participating, yeah, it'd just be our money.
Which is part of the 600 to 650,000. Everything is included, as opposed to, I provided this estimate. The only thing in this estimate that is not included in the actual application as developed right now, and I apologize for this format, there's nothing I can do. It's a KDOT sheet. The only thing that's in this is this bottom soft cost, non-participating, 15,000. You have an easement, city attorney, whatever, you would end up paying for that, and I have that that's why I gave you a range of costs. And that should be a high number, that 15,000 anyway, but it includes, contingencies, design, construction engineering, everything in it. So are there any questions on the project specifically? Yes.
I have one, to go back to one thing you said about continuing that sewer to Jackson.
Yes.
Now, are we talking about storm sewer there?
No. There's storm sewer in here that we would be doing some work on for cross pipes, but this is sanitary sewer.
Okay.
It connects, what we changed in the first phase, we replaced, was coming out of the west side of the high school. It comes out, that's the dead end service basically. It came out to the middle of the highway and went down. we replaced that down almost to, well, it's a little past the Circle Drive in the park. It's a little south of that we replaced. And you can see it because we had to cut the asphalt that we weren't replacing, and there's a new manhole. We would take that and take it down to the manholes down on Jackson and then replace the ones in Jackson.
Thank you. That's all I needed to know.
So really, the main question is, do we want to apply? If we want to apply, what year would you like to put down? And I will tell you, it really doesn't matter, because you could say 23 and they come back to, they will look at the project, and no matter what we put down, if they feel it would fit better in their budget the other year, they're gonna come back to you and ask you that. Would you be open to? The other question that they'll always ask is, would you be open to taking less than $1 million? And my answer is typically no, but this is a give and take. They will be an on-site inspection with KDOT on this project. They've already done it once. They may not even do it again officially, but they are definitely familiar with the project, and they will come back and say, if we award, would you do it? So this isn't saying we're gonna spend $600,000. This is saying we're applying. You will still have one more opportunity to evaluate that. But the impact will be probably in that range, and typically you would expect $23 project would probably be a little cheaper than a 24 project. But not knowing your budget, it may fit better in your budget in the 24 timeframe. But I wouldn't get too hung up on it, I guess is what I'm saying. If we want to apply, do we do the whole project? And what year would you like to put down on the application?
Either year would work. I mean, we'd work into the budget either year. So it's up to you guys if you want it sooner. I'd probably recommend going with 23, knowing that they'll tell you how to do it anyways. And just anchor on the fact that we have maybe a little bit of leverage to go, oh, yeah, we'll move it back, that's fine. So I'd probably say 23.
Okay. I think that's a good logic, actually, to have.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion? It's basically what, right now, just for the engineering.
No, just the south. I would just say to move forward with, authorize the mayor and city administrator. Well, right now I have Austin on it because it's nothing directly official. To allow Austin to submit the KDOT C-CLIP application for 2023. I think that's effective.
Yeah, nothing anchoring us in just yet. Just we're putting our name in there for the application.
Just in case.
Yep.
I make a motion to authorize Austin to fill out the application for the 2023 C-CLIP project.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0.
All right. Any other thing for me before I head off?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you, out of curiosity, how often you see Fred?
I saw him today. I see him usually every day or every other day.
And he's still working.
Yeah, he's still
I
working.
was just curious about that.
Yep, his wife wants him to work. I'll tell him hi for you.
Tell him Turkey
will.
said hello.
I will. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Daniel.
you.
All right, next up, we have the airport hangar, land lease agreement.
We have one new one that we have to write. We send these out by the 1st of April, they have to pay us. So we have one new one we have to write on a new person. It will look like the old one, which these all get done in 22. So if there was a change you wanted to make, we wanted to know before we wrote that one lease for just the one person, or just do it for 1 year. And then you guys will talk about these if you want to make the change with what's stored or isn't stored or any other thing. But we have the one person that now owns one that didn't before.
So what you're saying is 2022, everybody gets
A whole new lease.
a whole new,
A whole new lease,
All
and
right.
it can be the same or different.
so this is yearly.
This is yearly.
This is yearly.
But it's usually, well, it used to be they got a whole new lease every year, and then we went to, they got it every 3 years. So that's, and we had a moving scale on upping what they paid us. So there was discussion on if we want to change what they can put in them or not in them. But we have one new one to write, so we wanted to make sure it was okay to write it.
I think it only makes sense on the new one to standardize it in 1 year and put it in the same cycle
And just put it
as
all in the
everything.
same cycle with everybody
Yes.
else. Okay, I
Yes.
just wanted,
Otherwise,
because we don't want to
we'll be-
write, yes,
In 3 years, we'll be doing one again.
right. And that doesn't make any sense, but we just wanted to make sure you hadn't changed
And I'm gonna
anything.
assume that the guy that's wanting the lease has he's planning on using it for plane.
Well, I hope
I
so.
would assume,
I guess I can ask him.
so.
That's what yeah, I would assume that is true, but, okay. So we just wanted to make sure and keep it in front of you to decide if you want to change them. Because if we're going to make a change, we shouldn't send it to them in March for an April 1.
No.
Well,
Give them
and
that
if,
time.
and if we're gonna make a change, it'd be nice to do it far enough ahead of time that you
Right.
could notify the people.
Right, that's,
We
yeah.
probably need to do
You
it
know,
this
if we
summer or
tell them they've
something
gotta have
like
an
that.
aircraft in there, we can give them at least a year's notice, so you gotta either use it for an aircraft hangar or get your stuff out of there, whatever.
Right.
Right, so they have some time.
Yeah.
Right.
So, okay, we will write this one this way, and if you guys keep that in front of you, how quickly you want to bring it back and do the rest, or change the rates.
Do we have any that don't have aircraft in them?
I think we did.
At
I
least
don't know.
one, I think.
Okay, so that's all I have. We'll just write this for 1 year and keep it at the same rate as everybody's.
And the rates are for a year, that's not a month.
That's a year. That is
Okay,
correct.
'cause I
That
got-
$360 is 1 year.
Because I got chewed on,
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, that was just absolutely horrible, that we were charging that much.
okay.
Oh, yeah, no.
For a
it's not.
year?
It's-
For a year.
For a year.
It's not.
It was awful.
Well,
No, you have to, yeah, I can't say the source, but you would have to consider those source.
I think I probably got chewed on by the same person when this went into effect 2 years ago. There was
Yeah.
quite a, I don't know who all was on the council then versus now, but there was quite a discussion over how to increase it.
Yeah.
And we went to a square foot model.
Square foot.
And no, there was a lot of concern, and basically, this was the compromise that made nobody happy, which is the best kind, because people paying it thought it was too dang much, and then other people looked at it as it wasn't enough. Well, exactly, if you look at it by square footage of any other piece of land, it's horrible bad value.
Yeah.
Because that's what is being rented, that's why the reason it says land lease on it, because it's land, we're not renting buildings, and so those people aren't happy, but, yeah, no, like I said, it's the compromise that nobody wanted, so that's what they got.
All right, so we'll write this for 1 year for the same rate,
Yeah.
and it's by square foot, so, all right.
There you go.
All right, that's all I needed to approve.
Since we're on this subject, what do we do with the hangars that are no longer in repair? They're beyond repair.
Well, there's one that somebody bought, and I think their intention is they're going to repair it, or
That
they're
one
supposed
that's
to.
so bad, that's the one we're talking about.
Because that one supposed to got tore down, it got sold, and that person is supposed to repair that.
repairing.
It's in better shape than it was, I think they've done a little repair, it doesn't have doors, I think it has a planter in it right now.
It's coming in.
But I think they
Planter?
have started doing some repairs, I think it's a planter, I just saw the neck sticking out. But,
Alrighty then.
I think but it's been stabilized, so, progress.
Roof on it now, or?
I think it looks like they've done some work to keep anything else from peeling off, they just haven't gone back with anything. There's no pieces of tin blowing across the runway that I can tell.
That's the start, I guess.
So that's a
but
start,
yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
I think they need to keep them in good repair, or they don't need to have them. I mean,
Well, and that's, I guess we'll see how that comes along.
Yeah,
if
it's
it-
the definitional problem. I mean, I agree. I definitely don't think pieces of them should be blowing around,
Well-
obviously,
that's right.
but
Storing your planter in your airplane.
I think it's a fun, don't quote me on that. It's got something green that looked like a pintle hitch sticking out.
John Deere making planes now?
I don't know.
You never know.
That's interesting. Okay.
Okay, next thing, chicken ordinance.
Yep. It's on there because I've had some people ask me about it. We can do something with it or not do anything with it. We need to have a discussion about it.
Question.
Yes, Terry.
Why is this coming up again?
People have
Because
asked
people have
about
asked me about it.
People do bring it up on Facebook or catch people about it from time to time. It's
We've
kind of a
had-
hot topic thing that every few
Yeah.
months it kind of surfaces.
We have people in town that maybe have them, maybe don't. You know, so I think what we need to do is, if we're going to continue with this, we need to enforce it. And I mean, and I don't care who's buddies with who, I don't care. It's past that right now. If we made the decision to do this, but then, if we decide to let them have that, I'm gonna speak loud and clear, we need to do some sort of ordinance enforcement, period. Not let it slide, you know, and my husband is a ranch farm boy, you know, and he was like, chickens, and I said, no, no, no. You know, we're gonna have to require so many square feet, you know, there's gonna be a whole list of things.
Yeah.
That's gonna be, and if there's any, you know, to me, if there's any, like, complaints about excessive amounts of smell, you know, then you just aren't gonna have them anymore. That's just it. So,
Well,
that-
you gotta have some due process there, Bobby. You can't just say if there's a complaint, you can't have them.
you know what I mean. You have to go and you have to go talk in front of whoever we assign, and the police are gonna have to come, and they're gonna have to go in. It's not gonna just be like, my grumpy neighbor down the street is gonna say, that's stinking again. Well, you know, maybe it's not the chickens, you know? So, yeah.
Well, I'm all in favor of it I was in favor of it before. I was pro-chicken then, I'm pro-chicken now. I'm pro-egg, I don't really like chicken. But I agree. I mean, the only concern is we can't go too crazy with I don't wanna say we can't go crazy with enforcement, but already have the police plenty busy, Will's plenty busy. We gotta be a little careful of how much we put on. I think if we go in simple, less is more, maybe that's a good rule for a lot of government, little less is more. I think a lot of communities have proved that this can be done successfully. I don't see why we can't do it too.
I mean,
know.
it's just gonna have to be a simple black and white. Nobody gets
Well,
preferential treatment.
I'll play devil's advocate a little bit. We've got it simple, black and white right now. You're not supposed to have chickens, and we've got multiple people that have just ignored it and have chickens.
Well, and I don't smell them and I don't see them. I don't know how many there are. It'd be a really interesting,
I'm not
more than we
sure.
think.
More than,
But
yeah.
I will tell you this, I'm not gonna say anybody left this town because of chickens, cause that's probably not true. But I tell you, it's a contributing factor to people I know who've looked at either moving here or looked at moving to the country is, seriously, you can't even have a couple hens? Seriously, I don't know a lot of towns that don't allow it anymore.
Seriously? Chickens in a town? I don't see it.
Chickens have been in towns a lot longer than
I
anything
just-
else.
I
This is
just-
only a new thing that chickens aren't allowed. Chickens were allowed up until a generation of people, including my grandparents, kind of went to the modern era and nobody had chickens in town anymore. But through the 50s and 60s, this was not a thing. It's only a modern thing.
I'd have to look back. Our ordinance is older than that, I think.
Yeah.
Really? There's actually like a chicken kind of hutch built into my property, so I know there was at one time.
But I
See,
think
and that's
it
the
was
thing,
a
a lot of
long
these
time
towns like
ago.
Washington, my grandpa had a little shed out back when I was a little kid, and there were these little spots, and
Yeah.
he told me they used to allow chickens in town, and then they put
Yeah,
them.
my
That's the
grandparents
thing,
had them too.
they allowed them, and all these towns at one point decided that it wasn't a good idea.
Well,
And then now, we're starting to decide maybe it is a good idea again. I mean, some towns have been allowing it and some haven't.
well, yeah,
I just worry it's one more thing to throw on the police, and then you get into the, how many chickens can you have, are you gonna inspect it yearly? Who's to say that when you show up that they aren't gonna hide four of them in their basement, and the
Well,
dog?
but, you know, here's the thing too, I don't wanna, it's not necessarily a fair comparison, but when we went through the whole thing with the ATV, UTV ordinances, that applied to a relatively tiny amount of people, but we put all that together and we found a way to do it, and looks like we found a pretty good compromise. I don't see why this could be any different than that. This would apply to at least as many people, I would imagine.
I personally think it'll apply to more.
Well,
Yeah.
probably, yeah.
I'm not gonna say I'm for this. I had some people ask me about it, so I brought the discussion forth.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the kind of thing, like a lot of this type of thing where, I mean, Orshans will sell a ton of chickens, and it'll be really a big deal, and then it'll kinda cool, and then there'll be the 20 houses or whatever, people who are serious about it, and then that's who will have chickens in 2 or 3 years. I
Yeah.
think it's,
But I think when you write the ordinance, you need to take it into effect of make them serious about it.
oh, sure. No, it's the same as we did with the ATV and UTV ordinance thing. It's not just every go-kart in town can go run around.
No, and then, in my opinion, that's written wrong too, so. Yeah, it's one of them.
Sure.
So what do we want to do? Do we want to give suggestions? Do we want?
Well, I would like to have, or at least feel council out if they're open to the idea of a chicken ordinance, and at least know, we need to decide we're gonna move towards a chicken ordinance of some type, or people that have them need to get rid of them, one or the other. We can't, the way we're going on right now, just people have chickens and then they don't move them, and then they just say, well, council's probably gonna do something, and then it doesn't happen, and then they're just keeping chickens. Yeah, Terry?
This has been before the council, what, 3 times
A
already?
few times over the years, yeah.
This was voted down. There was an ordinance to keep it from happening in town, because that's what the people wanted, that was voted for it. There are people that should be able to have a say about this if you're gonna change, and then all of a sudden let certain folks have them, and then we're not complying with the ordinance we had originally. I say that we should let the public vote on this before we do anything to change.
But I don't know if you can, I don't know what the process is to get that on the
The
ballot.
that costs money, and we're elected to make those decisions. You can't put everything to a public vote. I agree, there's things that should be put to a public vote, but if you make this the line, then where does it stop, is the way I look at it. So, I mean, I see what you're saying, Terry, but I
understand that too. I also wanna say, if there are chickens in our town, and they're in town, and they're not in compliance with our ordinance, something needs to be done about it. If something hasn't been being done about it, it should start being done about it.
Exactly.
I think that's kind of the similar, we can do the similar thing we did with the, shipping containers. I mean, we can put a moratorium on it while it's being discussed.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to that, but you're right, as long as the
That
rule's the
moratorium's
rule.
been 4 years now.
And it's, nothing's changed on it.
with that. If this is complaint-driven, which is what it says it is, and we've had several complaints on it and nothing's been done, I don't know how you can grandfather something that's already been complained
Sure.
about.
Right.
Well,
I mean, and that's gonna be the problem.
Well, I know I don't really want them by me.
if my neighbor had them and wanted to share their eggs, I think that'd be a pretty all right deal.
Well,
I'm in favor of it. I think we should draft the ordinance, or, well, redraft it, bring the ordinance back, modernize it, kick it around and see what we can do.
modern.
We use the
Well,
ordinance
bring
from
it up to
Roland
current.
Park. That's where it came from.
Yeah,
So it's pretty modern,
is it?
because
Okay.
Roland Park isn't a very old city.
No, it's true.
I mean, if you really wanna bring it back, otherwise,
Well,
Did you read all of these instances where it's been brought up before?
yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of things that government in this city, in this country, brought up 50 times, and the 50th time it changed, and here we kept rolling. I don't think that's a ding against it, not to me personally.
You know how long disc golf took?
Well, yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do.
True.
disc golf.
This is the other
This-
third rail.
It is.
It's the other what?
Third rail of Marysville politics. Got chicken in one hand and a disc in the other.
Well, I mean, does somebody want to make a motion then that we
I move,
an ordinance and present it to council?
and that would allow that gives people, I assume this will be in the paper, I'm sure it'll be in the paper.
Oh, it's gonna be in the
And
paper.
it's on TV. And I'm sure we'll all hear pluses and minuses for the next 2 weeks. I make the motion that we draft an ordinance, based on a previous ordinance from Roland Park and bring it back to council for review and possible approval at the next meeting.
Next meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
How many
Motion
was
to the
that?
House?
Opposed.
Raise
Well,
your,
there's seven, so it'd be 4-3.
Oh.
Who voted yes?
raise your hand. 1, 2, 3,
4.
4.
So it passed. So we will get something, we'll get an ordinance pulled and presented for next council meeting.
Is it a good time to do this now? Okay.
Whenever you want to, yeah.
I move the city council recess into executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel, discussion on specific personnel matters, not general personnel policies, exception KSA 75-4319B1. This session will include the mayor, city council members, and city administrator. The open meeting will resume in the city council chambers I would like 15 minutes with this.
Give it 20.
20?
And then,
I-
I know, if you started,
20, so
9 o'clock.
8:56?
yeah,
9 o'clock.
8:57, all
Just-
right.
just come back at 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
All right, 9 o'clock, okay.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No, I'm gonna ask that we stay here and ask the audience to move. Paul.
Sorry, Tony. Thank you.
We're gonna move you guys out, and actually, I'm going to ask you to take this with you.
Take the clock?
Because this is one of the sticking points, you guys gotta know when we're coming back.
I just can't stay with me.
This is the clock we go by.
I'm gonna vote against you.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
It's been a long day.
You can sit out, Paul, you can sit out in the lobby if you want. We're not kicking you completely
Go ahead
out.
and take the clock.
Yeah, take the clock with you.
We care, Paul, we care.
Don't be blogging about this right now.
That's what he's doing now.
He's blogging about chickens.
Oh, yeah, we
not
won't want
blogging
to shut
about
down the feed.
This ain't even gonna make a bleep. The chickens
Let's,
be on the news later.
The hashtag handful of chicken.
Do we have to turn these off?
hold on, I'm doing it right now.
Oh, okay.
Let's see.
Well, I just want to be sure.
Just pour water on it, I heard that.
That's a one-time fix. Thanks. you are good to go.
Okay. We're back from executive session and no binding decisions were made. I guess I usually have to say that.
Yep.
Ooh, this ain't, is that on?
They're on.
All right.
Testing, I think.
We don't have anything on notices and hearings. Next up, we have the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Next up, we have appropriations ordinance number 3743.
Move to approve appropriations ordinance number 3743.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Hippiah,
Yes.
Fry,
Yay.
Schroller,
Yes?
Hughes,
Yes.
Bikeman,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Barons,
Yes.
7-0.
Okay. Next up, staff reports.
All right, first thing on my list are the yearly Neptune meters. I included a quote. We budget $80,000 a year, every year, for new meters to get, our 5-year program done. And I think, what did I say? This is year 3 of our 5-year replacement. So we got 2 more years after this, as long as you approve this, to be done. Total price, is $79,333 and 75 cents.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve buying the water meters?
Motion to approve buying the water meters for $79,333.75.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. And next up, we have the police incentive pay.
All right, first, at the workshop, you asked us to bring back, the police educational incentive pay. I have included the proposed policy, that rewards, those police officers that get an associate's, a bachelor's, and a master's degree. They would get paid $125 a quarter for associates, $250 for bachelor's, and $375 for a master's every quarter. This was based off of what was presented during the workshop. That in 2020, the Governor's Commission on Racial Equity and Justice recommended exploring options around increasing officer pay, including salary enhancements tied to degree attainment for law enforcement officers. Their reasons as follows. Increased officer pay has a dual positive effect on law enforcement agencies. It helps engage more diverse and qualified applicants, and it improves the overall quality of the officers and recruitment efforts. Additionally, studies have shown that law enforcement officers with higher levels of education are less likely to commit use of force violations. Law enforcement agencies should reward officers for attaining higher education degrees with salary enhancements and promote a general furthering of education within the department. Based upon a recommendation of the Governor's Commission on Racial Equity and Justice, we are recommending these levels of pay.
Would this start Q1 or Q2? When would you propose it to start?
I'd let's see, we're in quarter 1. Have we?
Yeah, we're in Q1 through the rest of the month.
Yeah.
I'd probably say, let's do 50% of the year. So Q3.
Start at Q3.
Yeah, just to get everything ready if you guys wanted to do it.
So who all qualifies for this?
I think you gotta ask how many.
How many qualifies for this?
Let's see, I think with at least 3, 3 that I know of
Okay.
So far.
so far.
So here's my concern. What are we gonna do for the other city employees that have to have certifications to do their jobs and keep those certifications up? Are we gonna give them stipends to do that?
That's, I mean, that's up to you. We do give, I mean, based on their certification, I'd have to look back at job descriptions. But each job description is, if you get a wastewater, certificate and so on and so forth.
They're required to have them to have that position. The only position in the police department that's required to have a degree is the chief.
Yeah.
None of the others are required to have a degree, but we have to have them with certifications, and they don't get additional pay. It's just, that's what you
Part of the
have to
job.
have.
Yeah, it's part of the job.
To do, exactly, and that's the way police department was always
You
as
know,
well.
that being said, and I am in favor of this, I
not.
wouldn't be opposed to having a comprehensive city employee education incentive program. A lot of companies have gone to that one form or the other, and it would benefit anybody in any position to get more certifications or more education. I mean, the police has been well documented, as you mentioned, and it's Matt Simpson-Romano, he discussed it, workshop, but are you aware of any other cities that have an across-the-board incentive pay structure for certifications on up?
I'm not aware at this time. Yeah.
As much as I'd love to just pass this right now, because that's something we can look into, since we're not gonna be looking at trying to bring this in till Q3 anyway.
Yes. Yeah, I can.
I mean, I think you're right, I mean, and it would benefit them to have that, more training and more
It's just-
knowledge.
You get the highest paid people getting more money, while the lower paid people that probably do just as much as the police officers do in running the city.
Sure, so you should have the same
Like-
opportunity to,
Yeah.
okay.
And they're probably spending police time doing the studying. I mean, to me, I don't know that it's
Yeah.
that fair, really.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean,
I feel that the police should be based on merit. And I don't think somebody should earn a raise. I'm against it.
Okay.
yeah, I think we've already given the police raises. They've all gotten more raises than anybody else anyway, so.
Well, but I think this isn't a lot of money, but it's also more of a structural thing.
Well,
This is more of an encouraging, shaping the police force more than it's putting money directly in their pockets. You're using the money as a carrot to get what you want, which is a more thoughtful police force, and more educated police force. But I'm saying, give the carrot to everybody.
Exactly.
Pass the carrots around. Carrots are good.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
So include other certifications,
Yeah,
advanced certifications.
I think it'd be worth exploring.
Okay,
I mean,
we
literally for
can-
everybody.
okay.
So.
yeah. then
Definitely.
give
I can
give
look
everybody a
into
chance, not just the police.
across the board. Yep. Okay, I can definitely look into that. The next thing on the list is, financials. The general fund is sitting a little over $1.4 million. We did have an increase in expenditures. Some of this had to do with the fire station. We are going to see that over the year as we pay for the fire station. We're going to start looking into financing for the fire station, since we are out of the contract of the financial advisor that we just terminated the contract with. We can now look into other ways to pay for the fire station, so we'll look into that. It's more than likely going to be a local bank that we're looking into. Let's see. Both water and sewer funds saw increases in expenditures. Quite a that had to do with transfer between funds. Sales tax fund is now over $1 million due to an increase in revenues. I think we're doing something right. Still more of the year, obviously, to come to do some evaluating on any changes, but I think we're looking pretty good so far. Any questions on that?
Okay.
Nothing else? I don't have anything.
All right, next up, standing committee reports. Anybody have anything on street?
I had a question. We had talked a little bit about the encroachment on North 20th and Airport Road up around Landall. Did anybody talk to them about that, or
I did.
what was the plan?
He apologized and said he would get it fixed.
But no, they didn't like the idea of painting lines or any kind of demarcation to show
It
where the
was-
street is?
The he didn't want to do any of that as of right now. There was no interest at that point in time. It was, okay, I apologize, we're gonna do better next time, sort of thing. And
I think it's
Is there an issue? I can readdress it.
Well, the other
with them.
day, there was some stuff stacked in the street. I think probably a forklift driver just set it there and went to get something else or whatever, but it reminded me that
Okay.
I didn't know if, I noticed no lines had been painted. I just didn't know what the plan was, so
Right.
if they're gonna stay on top of it, great.
Yeah, it was, we just talked about that last week, sort of thing, and I will readdress it with them.
A week ago Saturday, there was a pallet of steel sitting in Airport Road, and they weren't working.
Oh, well, this pallet was one that, you know, it's a big piece that come off the press brake, so it was hanging out way past.
Right, no,
You know,
this
if
was,
you weren't paying attention, you could've clipped it.
this was if you parked your vehicle in the gutter, you'd dead center it. Yeah, it's,
Another tight for space. That's why I'm just, you know.
well, they might be tight for space, but they got enough people to do a better job. I mean, they park a semi right next to the no parking sign every day, 5 days a week. If you and I did that, what would happen?
Yeah, well.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else have anything on street? I actually have a Kevin question that he hit me up about. If he's watching, I'm throwing him under the bus here.
I couldn't hear you.
Sixth Street, the manholes. And I noticed this too the other day when I was down there. They were cutting out around one of those manholes clear towards the south of the area that Hulber's has not done yet. Now, are we gonna do those beforehand, or are we gonna wait till they get the road so that they're nice and level and even with the road?
I just talked to Gary about this today. He said it's easier for them to match to our manholes than it is for us to match the manholes to their asphalt. So
Okay,
to do
well,
it
that
now,
was a concern
they
he
can
had,
lay the asphalt right up to our manhole and make it
Okay.
level.
It's not gonna be higher, and they're not gonna have to slope everything to our manhole. It's
No.
gonna be nice, okay.
They'll be able to lay it right up next to it.
Right. That's all I had on street.
When are they gonna open the dump again, do you know?
We are, working on hiring somebody, and I was planning on trying to, if we can, I think we had somebody interested, we need to get them trained on the equipment. Because it'd be a brand new person, the last person said they could not, come back. So I was hoping, when we started this process, to have it open by the 17th, which is a Wednesday.
The 17th of,
March. Coming up, right.
17th of March?
Yes, 17th of March. It's the 8th now, that'd be a week and a half from now.
I don't know. But I've been getting calls about it and seeing all the stuff on, it's been nice and people are cleaning up
Oh,
their
yeah.
yards
Yeah.
and they would like to see it open if there's any, like even if it was just for a day, if they knew, just to get that stuff hauled off.
We were in a sort of a challenge with the rules,
Yeah.
the federal rules on how we treat seasonal employees. I think they recently changed a couple years back on how many hours a seasonal employee can work during the year and how many weeks they can take off. So if we were to hire the same person back, that we had last year, we wouldn't be able to open till the 20th at this standing rate. Not that it's lucky that we're getting a new one to open a little bit earlier, but if we open earlier now, that shortens our time frame, so we're closing earlier in the end. So that,
Maybe
is there any way-
the 17th of March.
no, I think we're gonna open, I'm
17th of March?
let's say 90% sure we're gonna open on the 17th of March. There's a chance that it won't work, but there's a good interest in opening on the 17th of March.
So it'll be in this week's paper then?
Yeah.
There's no way we could break away an employee. I know we're starting projects and I know that they're short
That's
staffed to begin with.
That's the issue with nice weather. Everybody starts getting busy. It'd
Well,
be-
could we just would one of them want to, do a little, an overtime, like on a Saturday for the dump? The ones that have worked there before?
Not if we're looking at the end of the year. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'd hate to just start overtime and then run out when the apocalypse snowstorm
Yeah.
comes.
But at the same time, I think people would appreciate if we gotta pay a little bit of overtime to somebody to have the dump open.
Can't you just open the gate and leave it open? I mean, leave
Well,
people on their honor?
Then you
Well,
probably wouldn't have a problem, but you never know. People will do all
Borrow-
kinds of things if they're
To
not noticing.
borrow an employee from one of the other departments for a couple hours on Saturday,
There-
that much overtime's not gonna hurt anybody.
Okay, so right now, the water department's working on a new water line by the fire station. The parks department everything's growing now, so they're about to get really busy. And they're burning the levee and all that other stuff. The levee's 3 miles long and they have to take care of it and that's one of the unspoken things that we talk about all the time, is that they have 3 miles of territory that nobody looks at. The street department's trying to keep up with the streets and plan for, I'd love to work with that, but it's, they work hard and it's.
A lot of taxpayers that sure appreciate it.
Right,
When they need the dump, they'd like to have the dump.
right.
other towns don't have anybody. Sabetha doesn't have anybody at their dump. They just leave people on their honor, and I don't know if they've ever had any problems. I mean, I don't know.
I guarantee you will have a problem.
You have problems.
I hunt just north of the dump, and there's not enough responsible people that cannot keep themselves from throwing it in the ditch just north of the dump.
Yeah.
Piles of brush, grass with all sorts of beer cans, pop cans, and cups in it. I clean the ditch all the time for the guy that I hunt ground on. It is not even a eighth of a mile from that dump entrance. And if they don't get the dump, they go throw it in his ditch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you'll have problems. I'll guarantee it.
Yeah, but that's not in the dump.
Yeah, I know, because our dump's closed, they're abusing somebody else's land. That's
Okay.
ridiculous of these great honorable people that you mentioned that are not gonna create you a problem in the dump.
But that's where if we could figure out a way to keep the dump open more hours, we would not have people going out there and dumping it in the ditch
I
because
would-
it'd be open.
I would love to open the dump more hours. I'd love to do longer hours on Saturday and Sunday because those are the days when people get a lot of stuff done. I would love to do an hour somehow, some hours on Monday somehow, because if you don't quite get it done Sunday, you could run out there Monday.
Yes.
But unless you're gonna hire 2 people and split the hours apart and make it all work, ain't gonna happen. And you can call the city of Waterville and ask them how their dump works, because I think they've had a little problem with KDHE about people dumping stuff they shouldn't out there, and KDHE caught them. And the city got a little fine.
I don't know if there'd be a way that we could have some cameras or something out there installed possibly, I mean.
Live stream it.
Well, it's something, I mean, I'm not saying, you'd still have to have somebody out there, busy days, and you'd still have to have people going out there and pushing the piles up, but
Well, yeah.
if you
okay.
at least on some of your low traffic days, monitor it with some cameras. You know, open it in the morning or open it early afternoon or whatever, and then close it when the guys leave at the end of the day. I mean, just a thought. I mean, that's one of the big complaints that I hear about is people would like to see the dump open more.
Yes.
It's one of the things people would like to see. Anyway, so we're gonna plan on opening up on March 7th?
On March 17th, yep.
Okay.
And then I think in April, we do have our cleanup week. Do you know which week? The 3rd week in April, we do have the citywide cleanup week where the guys go around each day and do a section. Yeah, that 3rd week, so,
Guess your 3rd week in April might be 100 degrees.
yeah.
No, it's supposed to
Oh, probably get snow.
The week of the 19th is the 3rd week in April. Isn't that, week of the 19th. So we'll get that also in there too.
Right. Anything else on street? Water, wastewater? Parks and Rec?
When is the country club lake gonna be, put the aerators in?
They're in, they just.
April, April is when we turn them back on. The biologist out of, Tuttle Creek said April to October is when we have them on. So that's when we turn them back on.
Okay, somebody just brought it to my attention because they're seeing dead fish, you know, so.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe some of them, I don't know if some of them would have from the freeze, I don't know.
Yeah, no, we're following the biologist's recommendation. He said April to October, we turn them on, and so it's, once we get there, we'll get them back on.
Any applications turned in for pool manager?
We have a pool manager, we just haven't announced it yet. It's just not it's not completely final yet. We are gonna be co-managers this year.
How's the rest of the staff coming?
How many applications have we gotten back?
Several of last year's people, I'm excited, because that's good when you have
Experience.
experience,
Yep.
absolutely. So, we have had several of the people that have worked there for, some of them 4 years or more.
Wow,
So
that's good.
that's a really good thing for us, so.
Yes.
Thought maybe other people had got a thank you note, but I got a thank you note from a board member from the Marshall County Arts Cooperative, thanking us for hiring Darryl Rohr to refinish the windows at the Arts Center. Did anybody else get
I
thank you?
did.
I did, yep.
Okay. I just brought it in case other people didn't get them.
And Darryl is doing a really good job.
Yeah, he has in the past several different times.
Yep.
I just thought it was nice.
Yep. Very nice.
Okay, anything else on Parks and Rec?
Somebody brought to my attention, they said they walk down around the park a lot, and they said that there are people that let their dogs just run down there and they don't pick up after them, and they said it's gotten to be kind of a mess down there.
At City Park?
Yes, so is there some way we can
Don't we have those,
I,
food sites?
I didn't see.
Yeah.
Huh?
There should be one on
The
each end.
bags, yeah.
In the park?
The stations, the bag stations, yeah,
Where?
on the trail. And there's one down by the bathrooms,
Down where?
down by the bathrooms in the middle of the drive, right next to the drive, so that's.
Okay, well, we didn't drive around that way. We drove around, we went in the park from the south side and then drove around that way, but I didn't see any there.
There's a total of 3 stations in the park, one.
Maybe on the trail, there's probably one on
Two
the
on the
trail,
trail
yeah.
and one, not right next to the bathrooms, but, just a little ways around the bend.
Isn't it kind of on the other side of the water fountain or
Yeah,
something like that?
yeah, on the other, right next to the water fountain, right in that area.
Well, I think they probably walk on the sidewalk along the highway.
Yep.
And they said people are out there and they said that they were letting their dogs, just go along there, and you have to be real careful where you're walking.
Yeah.
Even if you just put a little sign, just please pick up after your dogs or something, I don't know what the
You know, they have
what the solution is.
that little dog in pooping with the circle with the, even if we could get a couple of those and put out.
I don't know. People just don't care.
No, they don't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on Parks and Rec? Cemetery and Airport? Police and Fire? Admin and Finance? No appointments, the city attorney's not here, roundtable.
I already said my piece, I'm done.
Todd?
What's the timetable on the new properties we acquired on Broadway? Because doors being left open and junk strung out on the street or behind the murals or whatever is
Really?
kind of, people calling me saying, oh, did somebody go break the windows out? I'm like, no, they're coming down. It looks like in slow motion. What is our timetable?
We just got the keys today, so they're ours now. So they
Are they
should have.
secured?
We're gonna go walk through them tomorrow morning. Dave Lynn had asked till yesterday to remove all the stuff that he wanted, which was a positive for us, which he did, like lean stuff up while he was doing that, and he parked in the middle of the street. it was questionable, activity, but he was removing stuff out of the buildings. We are gonna walk through them, if possible. I don't know how stable they are in there, but
Yeah.
Wear your hard hat
yes,
and
we got
mask,
those.
old mask.
And an actual mask, yeah. So we're gonna look at those properties and make sure they are,
Okay.
secure.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure that we were gonna seal them up.
Diane? Terry?
No, nothing.
Keith?
Yeah, I'm just curious what you guys think if Broadway had security cameras up and down the street. I mean, we're all of a sudden getting vandalized on Broadway for some reason. Signs are stealing off the post and windows are being broken in and. It's just something to look into.
What signs were stolen? I hadn't heard about that one.
There were a couple for the Pony Express barn.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I didn't hear
They
about
were not small signs, and,
the big yellow ones.
yeah, I think they were lag bolted to a telephone pole too.
Somebody
Yeah,
had to have seen that.
Little effort.
Well, they're
there,
probably in
I'm
somebody's
saying.
dorm room now, probably,
Well,
like that.
I
We
figure
know
they
we-
probably had to have a ladder or something.
A lot of the storefronts have cameras. Like, I don't worry too much because across the highway, Jesse has a camera, and I have cameras inside of the barber shop. And I know over on Main Street, Lori has cameras out front. And, you know, sporadically there are. You know, you just kind of have to, if there's a problem, we need to maybe like go talk and say, hey, you know, did you by chance? Lori would be a good one, because I don't know if she's got one in the parking lot, because if they've been having problems with their buildings that are now ours. You know, they're breaking into them, we could find out what's going on.
That should be the police. Should
I'm
check on
I'm
that.
almost surprised we don't have like a fisheye camera on the Main Street building down there.
There is, but it's, not operational. I think it was somebody else's.
I thought there had been one there, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have cameras on the outside of City Hall, do we?
No.
No, we mentioned at one
We've-
time.
we've
putting
talked
cameras
about
on
it.
all the city buildings and everything like that, I don't know what happened.
We got them inside City Hall right now. We haven't executed on cameras on the exterior ones. We've done some other measures, to make sure our property's okay.
It's just something to research, look into. I mean, it's,
Yeah. Could be part of that big citywide Wi-Fi project.
Well,
That's-
does
that's
this
what-
system have the capabilities to add cameras to it?
This one has 2 more camera capability. Yeah.
Well, the Kester Museum has them.
It has cameras.
Yep.
I don't know if they
They're not,
face
the
the street.
cameras aren't that expensive. So,
Depends on what you get.
right.
We could put some on the exterior, but that, I mean, I got the 8 camera system for expansion. I think, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I think they're all 6 in there, yeah.
The experience I've had with them is, once you start adding cameras and people see what they can do, then you're wanting more and more and more. Because we ended up installing a lot at the hospital.
Yep. Now, there's a little expansion capability.
Yes.
On our current DVR.
that's all I got.
Okay. Parker?
Nothing.
Colleen? I don't have anything.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Let me move through that